It's a pot of corn cobs boiling away on wood stove here. Oh yeah, just sort of make a video for some of the newer subscribers or people sort of coming from Kirsten's video who wanted to know a little bit more about the cardboard house and whatnot, and I'll answer a few of the things that she didn't sort of mention in the video and stuff like that. Now, of course, one of the ones is I get a few people who think it's a ridiculous idea. Well, to them I have this to say. They say things like, oh, you're not supposed to make a house out of cardboard. Hey, it's already been done. I'm not the first one to do it. When I first started, I ran a Google search and I couldn't find anything about cardboard houses with one basic search. I think I might have even ran one on YouTube and didn't really see anything that looked like any more than a kid's toy or a prop or a piece of artwork. And I assumed initially that I was building basically a world first, that it was a livable cardboard house, and that was a world first. To find out later, when I got to the stage of basically having completed the outer shell, that no, there were already cardboard buildings out there. And there's people go, oh, these things would never be approved by government. They already have been. There's one in New Zealand that's a church in Christchurch, New Zealand, that was built after a number of earthquakes that have happened in recent years there. And, it's built by a Japanese architect. It's expected to have a 50-year lifespan. Yes, it does actually have heavy cardboard tubes as a framing, and there's lugs on those tubes that are mounted to hold basically a polycarbonate roof, and the whole thing is basically covered by this plastic roof. And there's a bit of a gap in between the plastic roof and the cardboard tubes. And that's not the only one. I've seen a double-story one made within about a day or so by a Japanese cardboard company, but that was housed indoors. And I don't think that was basically waterproof like my one is, to be able to handle outside weather. But it was double-story and it had a balcony and that, and it was quite a sight to see. But, they were a cardboard company. I'm one person, backed by a very minimal budget, not backed by a company. I'm not an engineer. I don't have bucket loads of money. I'm not one of these secret blooming millionaires or anything like that. And the fact of the matter is, there's people that knock this, but this has already been done before. On top of that, there's a bike in Israel that's been around for a number of years. They had quite a nice prototype, a little bit sort of lumpy looking, bit sort of clunky looking, but really not that bad. And they got crowdfunding, and if you see it now, it looks like some sort of a injection molded plastic, or like a fiberglass cast or some blooming thing like that, and it looks as glossy as, and the whole thing's cardboard. Takes about $12 to build it. They are soon to start selling them, I believe, in Europe at about $60 each. I don't know what that works out in euro, but that is out there. This stuff exists. The bike's been around for a few years, and now they've got a highly refined version which is better than the original prototype. And it's ready to go to market. They're ready to manufacture this thing en masse, and that's another thing I should mention. This is a prototype. This is done by one person who's not an engineer, and like all prototypes, there are niggles. If you're one of these people that believe that a prototype is flawless the first time, you've obviously got no idea of some of the things that go on in research and development in design, and some of the things that I've talked about in my video prototypes that made it and ones that didn't, that I've heard about coming from people out of a local auto manufacturer. Yeah, I've even heard of a few extra stories that I haven't even mentioned in that video, but I won't go into those. So yes, it's a prototype. Yes, it's a little bit clunky, but what do you expect for one person doing it out of their own money without a ton of technical help? You know, it is what it is. It's a prototype. And in all honesty, it has done far better than I've expected. We experienced some pretty horrendous winds here, and the fact that it has held up to those winds, the fact that, well, the day after it went outside, it got hailed on, and stuff like this, I'm pleased as punch with the way it has held up, because it's proving to be better than I actually expected it to be. I'll tell you what, if it's still going after winter's over in Australia, I'm going to say she's successful. You know, it's already been outside for, I don't know, 6 months or something. Go back in my videos and you'll see there's a video where I announce that it's outside, and I show it sitting outside. And yeah, you know, then you'll see that whatever date that video was up, well, basically it was put out a day or two before that. I think it might have been 2 days before that. Yeah. I actually, to get it outside, we had a few issues, and my father was there helping at the time, and he was crowbarring the hell out of it on one side. I'm going, hang on a minute. All you're doing is just swiveling it around because it's caught on the edge of the shed that it was built in. And I said, you know, and I don't know how we're going to get it out. And he's still yanking. I'm going, it's not going anywhere. All you're doing is just wrestling, and we're not even getting it out here. And, you know, we're trying to work with the floor because you could put a lot of weight against that, but you can't really force anything against the cardboard without it damaging it, you know, not like a crowbar or anything like that anyway. And in the end, that big loop, there's a steel loop on the front. I hooked a rope onto that and hooked it onto the back of my car and pulled the bastard out of the shed. And it was pretty rough to be doing that, but it survived it, you know. Some of the things I've had people say is, oh, you know, it wouldn't survive being on the back of a truck. Well, it has. It's gone half a mile, nearly a kilometre from where it was built to here on the back of a tilt tray truck. It actually hit a bit of a, well, a few twigs of probably, I don't know, almost an inch diameter, and broke those off on a tree that was on the driveway. So I copped a bit of a whopping with that, but it just snapped the blooming twigs. It didn't break itself, you know. So it's sort of, it's been more resilient than I've expected. Let's get through some of the questions in that. What did you use for the waterproof coating? That's my business. Just take my word for it. It's blasted solid coating. It's also resistant to 100 degrees Celsius. It takes a bit of effort to get through with box cutters. I mean, you've got to cut about 4 times before it goes through the waterproof coating and that to, you know, to be able to cut out the chunk. And how do I know this? Well, when I cut the vent out for where the range hood blows out of, that was already there, that was already on, that was already waterproofed. I think it was even already painted. It actually was already painted too. And I had to cut that hole through after it had been waterproofed. And there was a bit of effort getting through that. Which brings me to the next question. Oh, there'll be a pinhole leak. Or you could have someone stab a pin through it and it'll leak. Hey, it's not rubber. You can't easily get things through this because it's an effort to get box cutters through. If you put box cutters onto the outside of that, you'll be fearful of breaking the blade in the box cutters. That's sort of what it's like trying to cut through it. It's harder than you expect. and to just think you're going to go through in one hit with crappy box cutters, you'll break the blade trying to cut through it in one hit. It won't happen. You'll just snap the blade. So you've got to go several times, 4 cuts or so before you'll get through it. Some of the other things. The other one, I couldn't believe someone asked this. Does it smell of cardboard? What's that supposed to mean? It doesn't smell any more than another sheet of photocopying paper smells. It doesn't smell of anything. It doesn't smell of glue or anything like that. Another one I should mention is, how hard is it and stuff like that. I hit my head on the roof 4 times while painting it. And I'll tell you what, 2 of those times I had a sore head because that roof does not budge. This whole idea, if you hit your head on the roof, you're going to punch a hole in the roof. No. It stays and your head just, is the one that keeps moving forwards. It doesn't move at all. It doesn't flame and budge. That sort of surprised me as well, that it was so strong when I was painting, and I was standing on the bloomin' bed frame and I stood up, didn't I? Stupid. Anyways, there's been a bit of concern about you've got an open flame in there and stuff like that. Well, it might be hard to notice it, and I don't know how much you actually see on the footage, but there's cement sheet underneath the stove and up against the back of it, and only recently, and you might not see this, you might if you look closely, where I boil the kettle, but my older videos of the progress videos won't show it, but there's actually cement sheet now up against the side of the water tank there. And people said a little open flame oil heater or the oil and the alcohol one. I had another larger oil one, and for some reason the wick's blocking up, or the oil's too thick to suck through the particular wick. The small one works fine, and then I've got a big one that you see as an alcohol burner. Well, that's basically one that I've got full of alcohol, but I got another large one like that was full of oil, and that initially worked, and then the wick just sort of all clammed up and turned to crap. I don't know what happened really, but it doesn't run too well. But the smaller one, which is also using a fiberglass wick, runs fine with oil. So I don't know. It's But anyways, they'll see that burning away and they go, that's going to cause it to catch on fire. Well, above that, that's all held by chains, because chains don't have a terribly great heat transfer because of all the individual links in them. Above that is cement sheeting. So there's cement sheeting basically glued on above where the, you see those open flames. But I've also got that, what is basically like a Red Bull can folded out to sort of capture some of the heat and then redissipate it, as sort of, radiant heat sort of thing. And I will mention that I've spent about 2 years in the heat transfer industry, and I understand things about heat transfer and stuff that most people can't get their head around. I've seen thermal expansion in ways that you wouldn't believe it. When I say I was in the heat transfer industry, I wasn't just banging out a million of the same radiator for a car manufacturer. I've seen some pretty magical stuff occurring in regards to heat and heat transfer, and highly customised radiators for the military, Antarctic missions, oil rigs, underground mining equipment, government stuff, miniature power stations for large mines or giant diesel generators. I've seen a lot of freaky stuff in regards to that, and I understand a few things about heat transfer. Now, people may have another question: why doesn't cardboard house blow away? That's because the floor is wood and the skids that it's mounted on are rather large hardwood skids. I must confess, I was initially going to do the cardboard house very different, and I was hoping not to have any actual framing per se, but due to the way the winds were, I decided to put a bit of wooden framing. And where you see the fan mounted off, and I've got the LED lights and the switches and all that business mounted off it, and even the your open flame little heaters there hanging off, that is actually a bit of wood framing. And the cardboard's glued to that. And there's also one near the door at the front and another one at the back. And I didn't want to have to do that, but I thought if I don't do it, it's just going to tear to bits and make me look like a dickhead when the wind starts blowing, because the wind here is far worse than most people can get their head around. There's people locally that own wind turbines, and they just shred the bearings to bits in the end. And it's not, dust in the air or anything like that. It's just the wind is so hard. You got to see it to believe it sometimes out here. I'll give you an example. The shed I built the cardboard house in, while I was building it during that winter, the roof of the shed got damaged as I was building the cardboard house in the shed. That same shed, I've seen the wall. I mean, this is a pretty big shed. I've seen the wall sucking in and out on this blooming shed from the wind. I've seen chunks of gravel that are almost a quarter-inch in size getting lifted up and getting blown by the wind around here. The wind is horrendous. So that was part of the reason I put some of the wood framing in the insides, but it's very, very minimal. It's not even 4x2. On top of that, it's actually used for making as an upper edging to wood paling fences. I believe that's what it is. But basically, it's got a notch in it. And that notch was pretty good for hiding electrical cables in, I will say that. But it's not even 35 by 90 or 4x2 softwood. It's some sort of treated pine, but it's very minimal. But I realised that I was just going to look like a dickhead if this whole thing collapsed in the wind, and I was going to have to do something, and that was the thing I decided on. And all in all, this thing has held up far better than I expected. I thought it would have been damaged by the wind with some of the winds it's copped. It hasn't been damaged by the hail. It's amazing how resilient it actually is, and it's exceeded my expectations. It was a real difficulty to get that stuff because the cardboard market here, I won't say much, but it's pretty controlled and pretty restricted, and you can't get your hands on much more than normal cardboard. I ended up getting, for the special products division for one of the large two manufacturers of what is essentially the duopoly of the cardboard industry here, I got in contact with the state salesperson for the special products division of one of these companies. And that was the only way I got hold of that honeycomb cell, because you just do not get it in this country unless you're a massive commercial user or, you're a reasonably, a decent business. You ain't going to get it if you're not some sort of business. And that stuff was actually imported, I believe, from China or somewhere, I assume China. And they actually rejected it. They were going to brand it as their brand, but they didn't believe it met their quality standards. And so then after buying a whole shipping container from China, they changed their mind and said, no, this is not good enough quality for us to put our brand name on. And they only had a handful of it, and they wanted to get rid of it. And I was one of the only people willing to buy it, and apparently it's been sitting there for quite a while. And that was the way I got my hands on it. And yeah, in the States, you may find it a lot easier to get honeycomb cardboard than I did here. But surprisingly enough, even though that didn't reach a great quality standard, it stood up better than I expected it to. So there you go. The only reason that whole thing isn't blown away is because of the flooring and the weight of the flooring in the cardboard house. Could I make one completely cardboard, 100% cardboard? If I had the help of a cardboard manufacturer, or I could get some decent cardboard products the way I wanted, absolutely I could make one 100% cardboard. But it would take a real effort. I would need quite a bit of funding, and I would need not to just buy what was on the shelf and what they offered, but to be able to really get some good cardboard the way I wanted it. And then, yes, we could go ahead and, make it. Now, if I couldn't get cardboard made the way I wanted it and I had to get stuff off the shelf, I could do it, but it would take a long time. And, it may take me a year to build it or something like that. It's a 100% cardboard house. I don't know how you go with showers and stuff like that either, to be honest, or a laundry or anything like that. I've also been told there was a project, and a girl I've met on a dating site asked me if that was the project I was involved in, that the New South Wales government was doing to create a completely cardboard house for use in natural disasters and emergency housing, and it even had a compostable toilet built into it. And I don't really know a great deal about that because I've only been told about it, and they asked, was I one of the driving forces behind that project? And I said, no, I didn't even know the existence of it. But there you go, there's another case of a cardboard house. Also, they make some in South America and Africa, and I've seen one recently, footage of one in Africa. It looked like a dome-shaped thing made out of old-style, normal cardboard, duo-flute or single-fluted cardboard. But yeah, there you go. There's a few things on the cardboard house and whatnot. And I recommend that you watch already existing crazy cardboard technologies, and you'll learn a few extra things about a few amazing cardboard products out there. I mentioned the bike and whatnot, but I mentioned a whole stack of things in that. So yeah, go and have a look for that video if I don't put a link in the description to that one. And yeah, there we go.